Some vocabulary. Ratio is a comparison between two quantities using division, and we can either make them look like a fraction, we can use a colon, or the word 2. So if we're comparing the number of circles to stars, we could write it 2 over 3, 2 colon 3, or just 2 to 3. We also have to distinguish between part-to-part ratios and part-to-whole ratios. So if we were comparing the number of stars to triangles, it'd be 3 to 1. But if we were comparing the number of triangles to all shapes, it would be 1 to 6. And when we're doing part-to-whole, that's a fraction. A rate is a ratio that compares quantities that are measured in different units. So like 5 roses cost $15, roses dollars. 52 miles on 2 gallons, miles, gallons. Different units. A unit rate is a comparison of two measurements where the denominator, or second number, has a value of 1. So New York State's minimum wage will change to $8.75 per hour. That means in 1 hour. And 3 cookies for each person are examples of unit rates. A proportion is an equation that states that two ratios are equal. So there are 3 stars and 2 circles, but if we drew another set of those, there would be 6 stars and 4 circles. If we drew yet another set, there would be 9 stars and 6 circles. And we could keep going. Equivalent ratios are ratios that represent the same part-to-part or part-to-whole relationship. They're closely related to proportions. So there are 3 stars for every 5 shapes, or we could also say there are 6 stars for every 10 shapes. Or 9 stars for every 15 shapes. And so on. Scaling up is to multiply the numerator and denominator by the same factor or number. So 3 stars to 2 circles. If we want to figure out how many stars there would be if we have 12 circles, we could either draw the pictures, there'd be a lot of pictures, and count, or we could scale up. We could multiply the 2 on the bottom times 6, do the same thing on the top, and then we would know that there are 18 stars. Scaling down is when you divide the numerator and denominator by the same factor or number. So here we have 10 boys and 4 girls. If we divide each of those by 2, we'll figure out that there are 5 boys for every 2 girls. Scaling down is a useful way to find the unit rate. And if we're talking about prices, then it's also called a unit price. You might see that in a grocery store. So if I made $48 in 4 hours and I want to figure out my hourly rate, I need to make the bottom number 1, and I know that 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I'd have to divide the top by 4, and I'd find my unit rate, $12 per hour. Solving proportions, we're going to learn four main ways to solve these: scaling up and down, unit rate, tables, and cross multiplication. We already kind of went over scaling up and down, so here's another example. Mike rides his bike 15 miles every 2 days. How many days will it take him to ride 90 miles? So we got to figure out what times 15 gives us 90. So I might do off to the side, 90 divided by 15, and it's 6. 15 times 6 is 90, so I scale up to find that 2 times 6 is 12, so it would take him 12 days to do the 90 miles. Using the unit rate, we would divide the bottom by 2, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then find that it's 7.5 miles in 1 day, or 7.5 miles. But then we'd have to figure out what times 7.5 gives us 90. Again, we could do division. 90 divided by 7.5, it's 12. And so 1 times 12 is 12. And we get the same answer, but you can see we use the unit rate to find that. Tables, again, same problem. 15 miles every 2 days. How many days to ride 90? Table, you would just kind of fill in, and it's almost the same thing as scaling up or down, but in this case scaling up. 15 over 2, 30 over 4, 45 over 6, 60 over 8, 75 over 10, and eventually you get to your 90 over 12. You could have also just taken one of those ratios, like 45 over 6, and multiplied times 2, or 30 over 4 multiplied times 3, and you get the same answer. That's also just like scaling up. Cross multiplication is probably the most popular method. Here I'm just showing you that you can write your proportions many different ways and still get the right answer. But cross multiplication is where we take 15 and then cross over and multiply times, in this case I call it D for days, and then 2 times 90, which is 180. Then I got to figure out what times 15 gives me 180, so I divide both sides by 15. The 15s cancel out, giving me my answer, D, and 180 divided by 15 is 12.